This is Mongolian Mindset, and today me and Christian are going to be breaking down the second part of the John Beebe 8-function model. Highly recommend you not pick up, but watch the video on the first 4 functions, okay? We go into more of the positive aspects of the consciousness there. This one will be leading into the unconscious, the things that we believe no one gets correct, okay? No matter who has broken this down online, we think no one gets this correct. But today, me and Christian will be breaking that down for you guys. Christian, you got anything you want to say?
The last one was easy mode. We're stepping it up to the next level. This is hard mode, okay? Pay close attention. Watch this 2 times, 3 times, 4 times until you get this right. I know me and Mercer had to discuss it a couple times for us to get it. So I know y'all gonna have to watch it a couple times for y'all to get it.
Okay, and to always remember that the shadow functions, they don't always materialize how people think or whatnot. A lot of times they're so unconscious that it's just chaos. Okay, and a lot of times some functions may exist and some may not exist. That's just how the unconsciousness is. So we like to term it in terms of it's more possibilities than realities, okay, when you talk about the shadow functions, but the ego functions, those are more reality, okay? So you won't always
Yes.
see these, but there's some functions like the critic that I think most of the time you will see, okay?
Mhm.
But, yeah.
And to kind of explain what he just said, kind of succinctly, it means some will show up more than others, basically.
And then there's
And in different people, some might show that others don't.
so,
So
so like you
it's
can't
more
like so
malleable. It's more malleable than the other functions, the original functions.
yeah, and so like you can't just always go out and like try to attach um a shadow function to a lot of things. Like we have some people in the community that always try to do that, but you can't always do that. It's a lot more malleable than people think. Okay.
Mhm,
And it's a lot more chaotic. Okay. But me
mhm,
and Christian will do our best to break this down. So even if you're blind, deaf, and dumb, you can walk away with something here.
mhm.
Okay, so to this one, we're gonna be talking about the opposing personality. Okay, this is in the 5th slot. I'm gonna let Christian go and take this one.
All right. So the opposing personality, this is the one that opposes the hero function. Okay. This function resists, obstructs, denies, negates, or seduces and manipulates in a passive aggressive way. So can feel irritated or confrontational, can constitute an exact negative reflection. Okay. It opposes the dominant function and can protect us against an inflated hero. Basically, this is like a buffer between the hero and yourself. It kind of dampens on the hero and kind of obstructs on it a little bit. Using this function could cause one to question one's position or decision. Okay, so it kind of slows you down when it comes to take action. You don't just jump immediately to using the hero when this is around. Okay, it becomes negative and becomes paranoid. Now, by becoming paranoid, what that means is you start questioning if your course of action is correct. Okay, it's passive aggressive, withdrawn or seductive to hide the fear associated with using it. It means basically this is not your dominant function. This is not your hero. It's the direct opposite of that. Therefore, you have fear with how you act when this is around. Okay.
Mhm.
Development comes from working to manage the energy loss using this function, realizing the negative response, working past it, allowing it to challenge one's assumptions to discover that sometimes it is right. I interpret this as you develop your relationship with this function, you start to accept its input more. Basically, you stop having those fear responses and you start adding it to your repertoire of skills. So basically, for example, me, I would be a TI hero. When I was younger, I would just immediately jump to TI, right? And it would cost me a lot of energy to go slow that down to go search for, you know, the meta information of whatever I'm trying to
So,
do
so like
or
a
sources.
good example would be like Christian when he was younger, right? We go back to Pokemon analogy here. So when he was younger, he was more into TI Hero and less opposing personality, right? So he just jumped to whatever TI Hero said, right? Um, but by battling somebody who's the TE user and a strong one, he's gotten kind of, hit over the head a couple times, and now he's realized, I'm a little paranoid. I may think this is the best way, but let me go check the meta. Let me go check the TE before I jump to this conclusion. So that's
Right.
exactly what this function is doing here. It's going to slow your ass down and say, hold up, what you're doing may not be right here. Okay, you need
But
to go.
then guess what? As time goes along and you start developing your relationship with this unconscious function, it actually becomes a course of action instead of a fear response. It becomes, okay, let me go check the meta, combine it with my thoughts, see what I want to do. And it becomes kind of more intuitive. It's not
Mhm.
as obstructive.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's where you want to get to. But you also got to remember the farther we go down in the in the unconscious, the more negative the functions are going to be, and also the more defensive they're going to be. Okay, as in the opposing one, you can get to the point to where this doesn't seem so bad. Like, let's say maybe you're an NI hero, maybe you should check those possibilities before you start chasing that future. Okay, check the fucking possibilities. Take a little bit of time. Okay, because that's going to give you the better result. Um,
Now, Mercer, correct me if I'm wrong, but your hero function, the unconscious version, would also be kind of uh, a strong function in your stack, correct? So, like for example, if your TI is really strong, your TE has a potential to be really strong if you
mhm.
develop it, right?
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, this is one of the easiest ways to add a big weapon to your repertoire because if you kind of just, you know, get over the fear and develop this, you can really take yourself to the next level because now you have two strong functions to rely on instead of just that hero function. You know, so I would say that whatever your hero is, take the unconscious, uh, the opposing personality, and really try to develop that further.
Yeah.
To kind of accelerate your development process.
Yeah. It's kind of like how I see it is like you don't want to just jump across the tracks, right? You want to look both sides and then go across the tracks, okay? Like the hero when you're younger or whatnot, or when the opposer's not that strong, you just jump across the tracks, okay? But when it gets better, check it, boom, boom. Now I'm across the tracks, okay? You're getting best of both worlds. You're combining both of them. And a lot of times we don't like to do this because like there's the energy laws and associated with it, like if people are using this around you, you might be a little annoyed or feel like they're slowing you down or irritating you, but in all it makes you better as a person. So I recommend that.
Yeah.
I think Dario already talks about like he picks up more NE when he's around enfps and stuff. That's because of the opposing personality. Okay, so this is my turn. This is the critic function, the cynic slash witch, the critical parent. I love this function because it's so easy to see in people. I think this is one of the ones that comes out the most, and like this should be like everybody should know it, because it belittles people, right? It fucking it's nasty. It is so nasty. It belittles the fuck out of you. Have you ever seen like a person just go immediately and just slam you for something? That's usually a critic function, okay? Because that function there just like it doesn't even think about the consequences. It's just like slam this motherfucker right here and right now. This motherfucker got to stop. Whatever he's saying is bad. Whatever it is bad. Get out of here. Um, so it's going to take that attitude. It regulates and devours, serves as the internal and external critic. So it can be attacking you as well. So it may be a hurdle for you to get over in your life. It's harshly and abruptly or sets limits. The function in this position instinctively nails violators in the tracks. So it's gonna nail somebody in the tracks. And I'll go through an example of this. Often when an aggressive reaction, like I said, very nasty, very fucking nasty. Like you don't want to be triggering this function in somebody because you ain't gonna have a good react. You're not gonna have a good relationship because they're gonna be slamming you all the time, and nobody wants to get slammed by it because it's so nasty. And I'll go through an example of how Christian slams me with his. Um, it is a response to the use of superior power, and it also wields power, creating rage and despair or signaling a new beginning. If you can withstand this bullshit, you can signal a new beginning. But sometimes you just want to choke the fuck out of them. Okay. Generally, the ugly part of us because it happens instantly without thoughts of consequences. Like I said, that this is probably the one that's probably the easiest to see. Is very powerful, very judgmental, This is the you're gonna be judging people based off this a lot of times. Okay. When we use this function, we judge harshly, even criticize ourselves, and establish needed boundaries. Development leads to understanding what we judge others for, avoiding self-criticism, and the ability to understand when defensiveness is needed or not. So this, when I think about it, is so Christian is SI critic, right? And for some reason, and I've noticed this, is whenever I try to give Christian advice on something that I don't have experience in, or like I read this or I know this, he gonna slam me with SI critic. You don't have the experience for this. I'm not even gonna have this fucking conversation with you. Like, you need more experience to talk to me about that. Or like when he's talking about, like, let's say, for instance, when somebody says something in the group or something, like, this motherfucker ain't got no fucking experience. He need to shut the fuck up. That's the kind of the tone the critics gonna be taking. Like, oh, he need more experience to be talking to me about something. So
Mhm.
it's a nasty motherfucker, okay? A very, very nasty, vile one. So you can generally see that when somebody goes and takes that response to something, you could tell that that's a critic. Okay. Um,
Mhm.
I had to
Now,
be partial.
I just want to add one thing I want to add about the critic. It's it's a more direct response compared to what we're gonna be discussing later. This is like
Bam.
first line defense, quick acting, direct
Haymaker.
criticism.
It's like
That's why
Mike
it's
Tyson.
yes, yes. So basically what Mercer's saying is correct. Like, I remember one time my girlfriend, we were in Puerto Rico, she was trying to tell me not to go to a restaurant. And I was like, how many times you been to a restaurant? And obviously she's never been, right? I'm like, so how do you know that you don't want to go? It was like a criticizing her lack of experience, like Mercer's describing. It's like a trigger response. You get triggered and you criticize directly, not passive aggressively. Okay.
It's nasty, and it's like people don't even notice that it's actually happening. They just bam your ass right then and there. So usually when you see somebody bam somebody for something, you're like, oh, what critic is that? What critic is he slamming somebody for? Okay, there's only two personalities that have this critic. Oh, now I can kind of see where I'm going, because the critic is so strong. I feel like that's one that you really can't really miss. Because if you set it off, it's coming out. And then, like, most people don't know about this, so they're not unaware of it. So yeah, we'll let Chris
Yeah.
go ahead and handle the trickster.
All right. So the trickster is a little more abstract than
Very
the
abstract.
critic, I would say. As we go down, they'll become more and more hidden and abstract. Now, in this case, the trickster manipulates and camouflages. It crosses boundaries, transgresses taboos, known as an escape artist, source of deception and lies. It resides in doubleness of paradox and irony. Now, as opposed to the critic, I would say this one is more passive aggressive. Now, all of these are kind of like, if you've noticed, they're kind of defensive responses. They come out in times of stress. This one will come out in a way where you will act to get what you want in an indirect way, not as opposed to the critic where it's like triggering and acts quickly. This one is kind of more deceitful. That's why it's the trickster. The function can cause confusion by inadvertently or deliberately masquerading, placing others in a double bind, or engaging in self sabotage. Now, I have an example of this. I was at work and the boss came along and she was asking for me to do a certain thing that was like to me it didn't make logical sense, obviously. And then so I wanted to get the point across that she was incorrect. But as opposed to using, let's say, for example, the critic response would have been like, you don't have the experience to tell me da da da. I didn't do that. What I did was I asked
Put
her a
on the mat.
question. I put on a mask and asked her a question that I knew she didn't have the answer for, or that I knew that she would have to provide an incorrect answer for me to take a certain action. So I'm masquerading. I'm basically setting a trap, a double bind. She can't win. She's between a rock and a hard place. Okay. And so, of course, I got my way because she couldn't answer the question or she couldn't tell me to do something that was obviously wrong. Right. That's the trickster response. It's a defensive response. Um,
So, like, let's say
Using
for
this
instance,
function.
wait,
Oh,
before you
good.
say that, so like
Yeah.
when you want to think about this, if you ever play chess, right? The knight can move from a certain spot where it takes either the queen or it takes X, right? And you, as the user, are screwed and screwed. Okay, it's like you're screwed and screwed. So they basically make away with something. Okay, and we have a video with John Beebe when we are talking more about this, and he said a lot of times when you're dealing with somebody and they put you in a trickster, the best thing to do is just to walk the fuck away because
Mhm.
you're gonna lose something if you take the wrong action.
Yeah, because they set a trap for you. It's a double trap. You go to the left, you get trapped. You go to the right, you get trapped. Now, all of these unconscious functions you can do on yourself, which is where the irony comes in. That's why it says doubleness of paradox and irony, because the trickster can even trick yourself. So that's why you need to be very careful with these functions. Now, the use of this function can lead to feeling trapped, not by one's making, distrust others while deceiving them, discover an unexpected solution to a dilemma. It creates dishonesty with self and others and can become addictive if it remains unconscious, arouses paranoia in self and others, and can lead to being blind to discriminating between trustworthy and untrustworthy. Development leads identifying when self deception occurs, embrace paradox, and noticing when one feels outmaneuvered or manipulated, or when one outmaneuvers and manipulates others. So basically, when you use this function, because you kind of realize that you do this deceitful thing to get what you want, inevitably you realize that others do it too. That's where the paranoia comes in. That's where you start to distrust others.
Mhm.
So, and like Mercer said, these unconscious functions sometimes don't show up in certain people. Like they show up more in one person versus another person, right? So if you're the type of person where this shows up a lot, then you start to distrust a lot,
Mhm.
as opposed to somebody where maybe they don't deal with this function so much in their life, then they'll trust a little bit more. So it just depends on, you know, basically like your experiences will, make this show up more or less in
Yeah,
your life. So
and
yeah.
it's like we said, it's like you slipping on that fucking max. You're like, oh, I got something for him. Now I'm gonna put
Mhm.
the horse gonna take the queen or the rook. Your choice, man. Your fucking choice. Okay. Um, but
But
hey,
it's a double-edged sword because
it can do it to
as you
you.
use this power, inevitably it starts to affect yourself.
Mhm.
So just realize that it's not just you being Machiavellian, it's also affecting your psyche as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it can also create a double bond for you as well. So you have to be very careful. You might not because these are so unconscious and like we said, like most people aren't reading this stuff to understand it or whatnot, so they don't even notice when they have tricked themselves into a double bond because you can go through your life sabotaging yourself with this. Okay, um, as we
mhm.
say, this function is like one of the weakest functions in your psyche. Okay, so it can lead to a lot of problems you trying to use this damn thing. Okay, sometimes it
Yeah.
could get you out of something. Like when Christian, he uses any trickster to propose multiple options for somebody. They're fucking
Mhm.
all bad. So
Mhm.
they're all bad. Uh, but his supervisor has to take one, and she's like, "Oh shit! Well, you know what? I'm gonna walk away."
It's
You
funny
got
because
to walk away.
it's funny that she chose to walk away. Exactly what you said, because it's like, you're in a bad position, you just need to retreat.
Yeah.
You're gonna take a L. Now, if you develop this function, then it kind of like allows you to have a radar for these things. So it
Mhm.
allows you to know when others are trying to do it to you. And so that could be useful in itself.
Just
But in order
realize that
to
you're in a
get,
double bond. Like he's got me in a
yeah.
double bond.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
I think it could be a bitch to deal with. I think this one could be a regular bitch. Like the critic, at least you know it's coming out, it's coming hard. But this one is kind of like you just left in such a shitty spot. You just like, man, and if you're not careful, you could be losing your queen. You could
yeah,
really
and
be
not only
losing your
that,
queen.
it is also very dangerous because this one specifically will cause you to live in kind of a delusion if you don't notice it. Like if you don't develop this, then you might trick yourself into living a certain lifestyle that you're not supposed to be living, and it will lead you to bad results. And if you're the type of person who's not developing, then you might be stuck in this for years. Then you might realize 5, 6, 7 years later that you've been living a certain way and you weren't supposed to. Basically, you tricked yourself into believing something that wasn't true, you know? So I would say be careful with this one. And, it's hard to put a stamp on it because it's so unconscious, so abstract
Mhm.
that it would be hard to know
Exactly
when
what
this
you're
is
doing.
active. But hey, that's what happens when you deal with these functions. Like we said, these are kind of hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So especially this low, in the stack. So
Yeah, so what we'll take from this is that just realize when you're double bonding yourself and when somebody might be double bonding you, okay? That's more likely the thing that you'll be able to pinpoint because like we said, these are very unconscious functions. It's gonna be hard to see, but just realize, hey man, this you're in an argument with somebody, like, damn, this motherfucker got me in a double bond. Okay, that's so much tricksters being used here, okay? Or maybe in your life, you seem to be finding like you in lose-lose situations all the time. Okay. You shouldn't be in these like situations where you're taking a loss all the time. That means you might be deving way too much in your trickster. Okay. Um,
mm, mm-hmm.
but we'll go on to the last one. So we have the eighth function, the demonic function. So this is a great one here. I mean, I got a lot to say about this one. So it's desperation and despair. It's undermining, sabotage, divine intervention, and a source of most miraculous achievements. So the reason why I think that this is undermining is because the natural thought process is to think that this function kind of stops your hero function to a certain degree. Okay, it's like people have this mindset that they can't do both. Okay, so I'll try to explain that. So from a TE perspective, you're trying to get things done. You're trying to be productivity, all this type of thing with TE. And you realize that, I can do TE, but then, you know, I'm not really caring about my team, right? And that's only going to work for you for so long, right? But if you're able to realize that I can use TE and I can use FE, and that's gonna set me above and beyond because not only does my group want to be here, but they love me, and that's gonna breed more into your productivity as somebody who's a TE Dom. Okay, let's say for instance, an INTJ, okay, with NI and SI, right? You could be thinking, I got to be so future focused on everything, right? And not studying the past, okay? And if you don't study the past, you're going to repeat the same thing over and over again. It's very important to study the past, okay? So you got to bring both of them together. Um, if you actually want to separate yourself and hit the next level. And that's where these miraculous achievements are going to come. I see it when you bring both of these two together. For some reason, it starts hitting that inferior starts to level up even quicker. Like bing, 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 bing. That inferior starts to level up. And like let's say for an ENTJ perspective, right? TE's hitting hard and FE's hitting hard. Okay. Your team's feeling good, everybody's feeling good about you. It's naturally going to make you feel good about yourself. Okay, that's gonna make your FI inferior feel so good about itself. Everybody talking good about you. Everybody wants to be about you. Everybody's talking about your company. All of this, that's naturally gonna make you feel good, which is going to make you want to develop that FI inferior even more. So that's the real miracle behind this function here. This function tends to be the epitome of destruction and negativity, can be a portal where the mind can enter like the anima, the inferior. So generally speaking, we have a negative approach to things. So like many ENTJs will think, I don't care about how other people feel, right? That's a bad approach. Okay. You're only going to get so far with that. We experience this function as non-existent, alien, or inexplicable. Using this function give vent to emotional outbursts, loss of faith in oneself and others, or marvel at its unexpected appearances. So it's gonna keep popping up, man. It's gonna keep popping up. You could get these outbursts. God damn, man, people, like, it's all of that together. When you're thinking about that. Problems, it can dominate one's thoughts, prevent one from recognizing when it's misleading or comes into awareness only after it could have been of value, right? Afterwards, you can be like, man, I could have used FE better in that situation. If you're an ENTJ, you're gonna be saying, I could have used that better. Or no matter what your function is, you're gonna be thinking in this perspective, I could have used that better there. Okay, it's gonna come back, it's gonna resurface. That's why I think it's important to change your mindset and your views on things. to ultimately get the best of the world. Okay. Development leads to acknowledging one inferior in this area, identifying one has unconsciously undermined others in oneself, observing the synchronicities that attend this function, interacting with those who have this function in the parent position to see its value. So you could be around if you really want to work on your demon function or demonic function. You could be around those who use it in the parent function because they're going to be using it more responsibly as a parent, and then you will see the overall value of that function, and you will see like, damn, well, this shit is really working, or like people really like this, or you really like this, or I should take more advantage of this. Depending on if it's an extroverted function or an introverted function. Like extroverted functions, you're gonna be able to see more out, like FE. You're gonna be like, damn, well, you go to an INFJ, you're like, damn, everybody really like Simon Sinek, where he was talking, and he's talking about like toxic work culture, right? And you notice that, damn, what he's saying actually does work, right? If everyone's having a great environment and feeling good about themselves, then the productivity goes insane. Okay. And
Right.
then if I just being calculate, productivity goes to shit. So it goes back to what I said is you're gonna be wanting to bring in both here, okay? And then overall, that's gonna bring you up to the next level here, and that's gonna bring these miracles. And I don't know why we seem to think that we only need to do one, but I say it all the time to myself sometimes, and I'm like, damn. Now I'm like, damn, I need to stop. I can do both.
Yeah.
I can do
Yeah.
both.
Yeah, I think because this function is so unconscious, it's almost seems like it doesn't exist
Mm-hmm.
in your life. So that's where the miraculous achievements come in because when it does show up and it does something, it's almost like where did that come from? You know what I mean? And then like you said, because it dampens on the kind of dampens on the hero function, not in kind of like a almost nebulous way, like you don't
Yeah.
even know it's there, but it's affecting you, you know, then it's almost like you don't even want to deal with it with that type of thing. It's like you start throwing that specific thing in the trash. For example, like me, like I value logic so much that I'll throw away my wants and needs, you know, like I'll just throw away my wants and needs and what I value, right? But then it's like you said, if I were to add that in my life, I probably could get way better results. But
Mm-hmm.
because, it's
Or
so
you'll be way
nebulous, it's
happier.
almost, yeah, you could achieve, like Mercer said, more happiness if you kind of develop this and add it to your life as opposed to acting like it doesn't matter and just throwing it
Mm-hmm.
in the trash, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
So like if you guys watch any of the celebrity typings or whatever, you will see that those celebrities are hitting both of these. Like when you see um these ENTP comedians, they're hitting NE and SC, and they're hitting it, and that's what's allowing them to provide such a great experience to everyone. That's what's really going on here. Or when
mm.
you see like Kobe Bryant, who's an INTJ, he really cares about his SI, really cares about that, and that's what allowed him to be arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time, even though talent-wise he was a middle of a pack NBA player. He had a 37-inch vertical. It wasn't crazy like even LeBron's son had a 40.5. Kobe had a 37. He was 6'6". He wasn't the best shooter like Steph Curry. So but you put both of these together and you become unstoppable. And only till then, hey man, you be living a normal ass life.
And I think in a way you almost need help to develop this. Like the when you deal with the people with the parent function, that have this, it's almost like you realize, oh, it does exist.
Mhm.
It does exist in that person.
And it
They
does
have that. I
work.
don't, you know. And then when you realize that it's real, it's almost like maybe I could do it too. And then now that you put it in a real sense, now you can work on it. But if you're just isolating yourself and trying to develop this, I think it could be very tough. So it could be circumstantial too. The right person comes along and it kind of wakes you up to this reality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I
mhm.
mean, like we said, these four unconscious functions are a lot harder to put in words. Me and Christian do think we have done the best we can to put these in words because these are very abstract. And as always, we reference our sources: John Beebe's Energies and Patterns, and Carol Shoemake's Projections and Personality Development via the 8-function model. And John Beebe signed off on everything she put in this book. So yeah. Um, yeah, Christian, any last thing you want to say, man? Overall here, we finished
Like I said in the beginning of the video, watch this 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, whatever you need to get this in your brain. Because when we come with the next video, we're going to be basing what we're talking about on these things that we discuss in these 2 videos. So if you have these bases covered, you'll better understand future videos about whatever we choose to talk about. So,
Yeah. I mean, this was fun. I mean, me and Christian really, I got to really because I kind of knew about these functions, but it's always better when I have Christian with me because we go through it, we hammer it down, and we get this stuff correctly for you guys. And like I said, there's nobody in the MBTI content space that's doing what we do when it comes to being accurate and giving y'all the best source of information. Okay, so y'all go ahead and drop us a like. We greatly appreciate it, and drop us some comments if you notice something that you didn't know, and were you shocked through our breakdown, and did it make perfect sense to you? And yeah, that's John Beebe's 8-function model down by us.
all right.
All right, guys, take it easy.